Welcome back to the What About Mom podcast, where we go beyond surface level advice and into the real, raw, and radical work of healing, evolving, and reclaiming your identity as a woman and a mother. I'm your host, Jessica London, doctor of physical therapy, pelvic floor specialist, mom to two, and founder of Your Postpartum PT and Wellness. This show is your space for bold conversations, practical tools, and powerful reminders that when mothers heal, so does the world. So whether you're rebuilding your strength, finding your voice, or rising into the woman and mother you're becoming, you are in the right place. Let's dive in. Let's talk about the big elephant of the room of feeling like you have to completely self-sacrifice yourself in motherhood. And to be honest with you, I'm just always going to keep it real on this podcast. And some people might love this and totally agree with it, and other people might not. And that's totally cool. I just want to say I respect everyone. I love everyone. But one thing I have found to consistently be true is motherhood takes sacrifice, yes, but we don't need to sacrifice our own selves as a mom while becoming and raising children, in my personal opinion, right? I actually wrote this carousel post on my Instagram and it totally took off and has had over 350 likes and almost 200 reshares. And so I know that this is resonating with so many women and mothers in this identity shift that we have becoming mothers, right? And I'm going to do a whole separate episode on the transition and the identity shift that goes from womanhood to motherhood. And then that same identity shift that goes from, okay, now that I'm done having children and no longer in the thick of the trenches of pregnancy, postpartum, there's another shift that happens in this time period where you know you're done raising little kiddos and you've chosen that your family is complete and you're ready to move on from that like little the trenches chapter, if you will, where you're in that 0 to 3 range. I will say there's another identity shift, at least that I've experienced, and friends of littles that I've talked to around that 3-year-old mark when your youngest is about 3 or 4, that shifts again as a woman and as a mother in this identity piece. But what I really want to talk about today is the fact that your kids don't need a mom who sacrifices herself, right? And your kids do not need a mom who completely allows herself to go to the wayside because we're going to slap motherhood as the reason, right? And in my belief, they need a mom who models what it looks like to prioritize her body, her health, her boundaries, and her joy, right? And this doesn't mean that motherhood doesn't take sacrifice. This is more relating to the concept of I need to sacrifice myself because I became a mom. And that's what I want to help us reframe today. I believe that our kids need a mom that is going to be their most authentic expression of themselves, of herself, so that they can model what that looks like to lean into the discomfort, to lean in to her own desires, her joys, her happiness, her satisfaction, her health, her boundaries potentially, right? Here's the truth that I don't think enough people are talking about or even saying loudly enough. So here I am on a podcast shouting it from the rooftops. Your relationship with your body becomes the blueprint for theirs. The way you speak about yourself becomes their inner voice. The way that you treat yourself becomes the way that they accept as their normal. And we don't break generational patterns by hustling ourselves into burnout and calling it love. We break these patterns by being well, by being happy, by choosing strength over silence, by healing out loud so our kids don't have to watch us suffer and complain and then put nothing into action. We have to ask ourselves, like, what are we willing to model? What are we wanting them to see? And what I've learned is speaking to hundreds and thousands of moms. I literally work with moms all day long. I've had over 1,000 inquiry calls with moms that are considering healing their pelvic floor and core in our programs. And what I've found to be true is moms are the first to self-sacrifice themselves. And it doesn't become noble when it becomes a blueprint for your self-abandonment, right? This is not about ego. This is literally about recognizing that over time we label something as, oh, it's not my time, it's not my season, this is not about me, it's all about them. And we forget the whole point is that they are learning those things from us. They are learning how we feel about our bodies is what they will feel about themselves. We are creating the legacy, the imprint that we choose to leave. And it's important that us mothers know and do the work and do the healing on our own together in sisterhood, in motherhood. Because if we don't, then the narratives and the belief systems and the mindsets and the way that we treat ourselves, our body, our desires, our joys will become how they view the world. And so I know this is a really big kind of, taboo topic to maybe even think about or talk about, but that's kind of a high level overview of the post that I made on my Instagram at your postpartum PT, talking about how self sacrifice becomes self abandonment, but yet so many moms are putting it in a pretty little box and calling it love, right? At what point do we also consider our self love as the greatest gift, our own highest self expression of ourselves as the biggest gift that we can give our children? Right. And children tend to learn things by modeling. Children tend to learn things by observing. And so if they see a mom that is totally burnt out, that is totally exhausted, that isn't expressing her needs, her desires, that isn't utilizing her voice, that isn't speaking up for herself, that isn't having any fun and is just going through the motions because we have to sometimes, right? But is so burnt out living for everybody else besides ourselves, then our kids will see that. Our kids will think that that's what being a mom means. And this isn't about comparison in any way. We can literally live out our highest calling and our highest version of ourselves by being the most authentic to ourselves, knowing that it's not about perfection. It's not about trying to get it right all of the time. It is literally living in the moment by moment, being our truest, most authentic self, and allowing our kids to join the journey in that. And of course, here I am. My kiddos are little right now. At the time of recording this, I have an almost 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. And there is a real difference between the years of 0 to 3 in raising babies and little kiddos that really need so much of our undivided love and a nurturing and attention and care and stewardship. And there's also a shift that I'm seeing too now that my youngest is 3, around that 3 to 6 mark range, right? And it allows me to see things a bit clearer. But one thing for sure that I am so grateful for is that I always chose to also take care of me during this process. And I think that if more moms continue to choose themselves to make sure that they show up as the most authentic version of themselves, and this can be hard sometimes when we're going through these identity shifts. It can feel like one foot in front of the other, and you wake up and you do it all over again, and it's Groundhog's Day. And it can feel really hard to figure out, like, what do I even like? What are my passions? What are my joys? Like, who am I? Who are my friends now? Everything has seemed to shift. And you're kind of in a bit of an identity crisis, if you will, becoming going from being a woman to a mom. There's so much that shifts, and there's not enough people talking about it. But one thing I want to encourage all of us moms to do during this time is to continue to ask ourselves questions, right? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I wanting to be a working mom? Why am I wanting to stay home with my kids? Why am I wanting to not go out and have fun with my friends? Why am I, whatever it is, like why? Ask the questions of why And it will help bring you back to the inner joy inside of yourself. It will help bring you back to yourself to make sure that you're continuing to enjoy motherhood in this space because you are still taking care of yourself, your body, your needs, your desires, your happiness, your creative outlooks. It will be important for us to be able to continue to lean in to those pockets, and it might not look exactly the same. I wanna say that for any mamas who are just becoming mamas or pregnant for the first time. It's not gonna look the same. It's gonna look different. And there's gonna be time management, and there's gonna be you needing to communicate your needs to a partner or a spouse, or support partners, family members, so that you can continue to prioritize yourself because it won't be easy and no one else is gonna care more about you than you. And it won't just be handled on a silver platter of, "Yep, go take care of yourself. This is your time." A phone reminder, right? Unless we put those in. But it is gonna be something that we have to consciously be aware of, is checking in with ourselves, checking in with our emotions, checking in with our happiness, checking in with how we're feeling on a day-to-day basis, knowing that we can always pivot and don't have to continue to stay doing something that doesn't bring us joy, that doesn't bring us happiness, that doesn't bring us the greatest honor while raising children. So this is going to be a short little episode, short and sweet, just like I like it. Little pop in love to remind you that you are important. Your body is important. Your needs are important. Your desires are important. Your happiness, your joy is so important. And to remind you that you don't have to self sabotage or self sacrifice yourself because that it leads to self abandonment. And when we abandon ourselves as mothers, what is that actually teaching our kids, right? Our kiddos will learn from us. And so, if anything that you get from this message today, it's to remind yourself of how important you are to prioritize, how important you are to nourish, how important you are to care for and love, how important you are to make sure that you're communicating to your loved ones and your support partners and spouses if something feels off or out of alignment. And to remember that our children learn from us modeling these things. And I love you. And I'll see you on the next episode.